This, for me, felt like you're not crazy. The things you're excited about can be done, and done at a level you probably will never reach, but go for it, because it felt like a kind of supportive lift and made me want to go make theater. A production that absolutely changed my life was Robert Lepage's Far Side of the Moon. I believe I saw it somewhere in 2000, 2001. Far Side of the Moon was about this PhD student that had this great obsession and desire to write his thesis about space exploration to the moon. So the production culminates or is moving towards him having to present this thesis, being invited to present it at some science space thing in Moscow. I'll never forget it, that kind of culminating moment where for the whole production, there was this large rotating mirror that could come down, turn, and be a table, came down and turned on about a 45-degree above him. And he sat in a chair that was on the ground. So his back was on the floor. But when you looked as the audience into the mirror, seeing his reflection, it looked like he was sitting up in a empty black space. And he was waiting, I believe, to present his thesis at a microphone in front of all these people at this conference. And the most beautiful, I can't remember what the classical piece was, but this incredible piece of music comes on. And what happens is, and he takes a long time to do it, but very slowly, he starts to float out of his chair. And he's on the ground, kind of squirming out of his chair. But when you look at the mirror, you see somebody literally looks like they're leaving, floating away from their chair, and there's no gravity. And what was incredible for me was two things were at play. There was this middle-aged French man squirming on the floor, making kind of squeaky noises. And you can see that and watch that, and there's very little magic in it. And then you pan up and you look in the mirror, and I remember being very moved and in tears, because the poetry of the moment of this guy finally in his head or whatever, getting liftoff and floating away from his reality into space, blackout. It was, for me, one of the breathtaking moments I've ever seen in the theater still to this date, because, again, it captured, for that character and their story, it captured what was going on inside of them and shared it with the audience in a way that was way more powerful than anything I can do with words. And so I leave his production that evening adrenalized, thinking, I imagine like I just saw the Beatles or the Stones for the first time and it's 1963 or something. I just, something cracked open. And so from that point on, my trajectory changed. I became very interested in what it meant to engage with an audience's imagination, so that it requires the audience's mind to complete the idea, that it's not on its own finished. I think I had met Michael Levine, but not worked with him. And I was a huge admirer of Michael's work at the time. And so there were these like converging artists that had made things together that I was holding up on a huge plateau. And I think I couldn't see a place for that thinking. And it was, I remember kind of going, where do I apply this thing that a kind of theater that I'm excited to do? It took probably 10 years before I felt like finally where I could say, here's an idea. Let's just go in the theater and put a 16 by 16 red square. And the rule is one character, the lead character, can never leave that red square because he's bound by the space. Everyone else can operate around that square. What I slowly started to do, and I'm doing now more than ever, is kind of leaving metaphor behind. I'm like less interested in metaphor. The red means nothing. It is what you want it to be. I could sell it, say, oh, it's passion. That I find that reductive now. I think that what I'm more interested what's the function? What's happening? What are we doing with it? How is it incorporated into action and how does it function? And I think out of that can come meaning. As the years went on, after seeing that production and learning how Robert works, and similarly, artists like Simon McBurney with Theatrical Plissoté, it became very clear to me that it's not an accident, it's not a coincidence, that things that I found really exciting and interesting came from a kind of work where process and how they did something affected the result of what it was in a way that I found compelling and really interesting theater.